I thought I'd make a video about how to sort of look at a chord progression and figure out a way that you can improvise melodies, that is like single lines over the top, you know, just making up a melody over a chord progression if you understand the framework and the family and everything that it comes from, and how you might look at a chord progression to do that. It's something that you want to sort of try and find the simplest way you can, I think, and then you can get out your own way and actually let the melody take its course and actually sort of express itself. But is if you're overthinking, it gets messed up. But I think a lot of people are new to trying to do it. Maybe the way the way it's sort of taught a lot of the time seems to be very, very confusing and complicated, but it doesn't really have to be. So anyway, the chord progression I was playing over there was by Stanley Jordan. It's called A Touch of Blue. I've written out the chords here, and I'll show them on the camera just so you can pause the video and make a note or whatever, but I'll talk through them as well in a second. But so this is what it looks like here on that side, and I hope you can see this okay. Yeah, okay. So I'll talk through the chords. So the first thing to note is when you're looking at any chord progression or this, I don't really know if these are exact chords or whatever. I was just listening to it, and this is my sort of impression of it. But I thought it would just be an okay example. So the first thing you want to be aware of is the key, and you can think of that as just where kind of home is in the song, where you feel like it's heading. So when I hear these chords, so this feels like it's finished, like a full stop. So you could say this is the key, which is C sharp. So C sharp minor is our key. It's kind of home for this. So I'll just talk through the chords, and then after that I'll say, you know, maybe how you could approach playing your own melodies over it. So you got F sharp. I'm playing F sharp minor 7, and I'm just doing 3-note versions of the chords. So like with the root, the flat 7, and then the third, the minor third 2. So F sharp minor 7, G sharp dominant 7 to C sharp minor 7, and then that repeats. Okay, so then something different happens here. F sharp minor 7, G sharp dominant 7, A sharp minor 7, B minor 7, E dominant 7, A dominant 7, G sharp dominant 7, C sharp minor 7. So what happened there, if we take it in chunks, so the first section, this is a very, you know, kind of, it's all over the place and all kinds of music. If we were to give this numbers, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. This is our C sharp minor scale. This is the notes of our key. And you look to the bass note in each chord, we could say this is 4, 5, 1. And so over this, you can certainly look at these as a group, which would be what I suggest, rather than looking at them individually, and think about
they pretty much they're all coming from the same family there. I mean, your starting point should be just thinking the key of C sharp minor. In my opinion, this makes sense. You know, if you know, which is just like if you know E major scale, it's just all the same notes. And this family is going to pretty much work over those, but it's up to you and your ear to find lines that are melodic. There's different approaches and the ways people think about it. I mean, some people really, for it to be melodic, you have to always play, the chord tones and all this. But you can, to be honest with you, you can, depending on your taste, you can probably get away with anything as long as the melodic line and the rhythm and the flow makes sense. You don't even have to pay that much attention to the chords. They're just kind of suggestions, as long as the melody makes sense. But this is so you can think of this as a family altogether. The tone that you want to notice here is the major third on this G sharp dominant 7. Means at this point, if you were to really play in tune with the chords, which you don't have to do, it's just a choice, you would raise the 7th of your C sharp minor family. So instead of the sound being, instead of your family being, it would be like, it would have this note instead of. And on this chord, you rarely use the lowered 6th tone. You wouldn't use, probably not this note over that chord, even though it's in the family. So second choice you might have here is you might think about raising that, and you could have this sort of mysterious sound. Comes up over minor chords. That would make it, think of it as like a minor 6 chord. So that's another choice, you don't have to do that. So this is what we've got so far, but it's the thing to remember is it's basically C sharp minor, but you're modifying notes if you feel like it. You don't have to. But this part is pretty normal if you can trust your ear. Even a line like that, which is basically just playing the scale, makes sense. Or you could play more like, more like angular jumping. You can. The thing is, if you're playing by yourself, let's say, you might want to think about describing the chords a bit more explicitly. So we can sort of hear the chords in here, and it's not something I would recommend trying to overthink. You've just got to sort of trust your ear. Or you can think about, if you wanted to, if you're really not sure, you could think about the arpeggios of the chords and stuff in there. But the thing is, if you're on your own, you might want to think about that more. But if you're playing with chords, in the background, like a keyboard or a rhythm guitar or something, you can be more suggestive and play basically notes that aren't really in the chords. I'll show you what I mean. We're moving on to the next section here, but you could linger on, the 9th of the chord or the 11th. If you ever listen to Sade sing, this is what seems to be a lot of the melody lines. Just they're not even using the notes in the chord. Like if it's a D minor chord, she might. different sound, you can do that, or if you want to describe the chords more, you can do that. So you've got a lot of choice when you're soloing. Like I say, ultimately the chords, that if it's something that you're hearing in the bass line or a rhythm part or whatever, it's just a kind of suggestion, and it's up to you to just find some whatever melodic line makes sense to you. So if we're to carry on, then there's some more chords in here where you might have to think about, you know, adjusting your framework to fit them a bit more. So the next section is going to go F sharp minor 7, G sharp dominant 7, just like before. And then it's going to come this chord, which I'm playing in another 3-note form here, and this leads on to the next thing. But so this is A sharp minor 7. Note that in the key of C minor, the sixth tone is, you know, if you diatonically to C minor, is usually you know, lowered. It's A natural. But here we've got this note, it's raised, so we're using a note that's not really in the key here, and we're putting a minor chord on it, a minor 7 type chord. Now, if you've got two ways to think about this, because you've got a 3-note chord in the rhythm part, maybe your choice here, you know, this is assuming you've got to think about what else is going on with who else is playing. But if the backing is just this could be A sharp minor 7 flat 5, which sounds very dark, but you might like it in context. This is the chord playing. You could play this same kind of lines over it, or if you wanted more open, you know, a bit brighter sound, this would be using the perfect fifth of the chord. And then this would be, if it's the perfect fifth, you're using another note that's not in the key, so you're thinking about a modification here again. So you've got the choice there. If you want to just modify one note, you can raise the 6th tone, or if you want to modify 2 notes, you can raise the 3rd as well. I'm talking about of C sharp minor here. So if your chords are going, so maybe we've got like F sharp minor, and then G sharp dominant, and then here you get to this chord. The line could sound like, or it could sound like. So it's really up to your taste. So you have choice there again. And then continuing on. Now this is something that happens very, very often in lots of different kinds of music. This sound. What's happened here is, so we've gone from B minor 7. Now this chord, if we were sticking to just the notes of the key of C sharp minor, it would be B dominant 7, leading to, you know, some E major or something. But here it's been swapped for a minor chord. It's been made minor, so the scales, the key has been adjusted again. This note in your C sharp minor key is now this. So what's really happened here? So we've just adjusted one note, and then when we go here, this sounds as if it's heading to a new home. It sounds like it's going to go like this. Something like this. So this is almost like we've changed homes temporarily to now A is the home. So at this point, you could think of this a couple of ways. You could think of it as just modifying this note, but for some reason, fingering wise, this feels quite awkward to me. It's kind of easier for me to switch my brain to think, okay, well now the home is here now. So instead of the home being here, now it's changed. But it's just through the shifting of one note, just through the modification of one note in the line that can be achieved. But it's very common. It's basically borrowing from the key of 4, if you like. If you're thinking of E as the major, it's 1 here, and then A is 4 of that 1, 2, 3, 4, because E is a relative major of C sharp minor, so it's all the same thing. Happens all the time for a very long time, chronologically in music, but basically just temporarily moving home to the key of 4, and then chord-wise, what happens after this? But instead of going to A major, it's made A dominant 7. Now this happens a lot of the time in kind of bluesy sounds. This sound basically. I'm sure I've heard this thing like. It sounds really bluesy because we've changed what was expected to be A major or maybe even A major 7. We've changed it now, so it's got a flat 7. Now you're thinking of it relative to your home of C sharp minor now, if this is how you want to go about it. Remember, so what's happened now is you're basically introducing the flat 5 of C sharp minor, which is the typical blues sound, because this note is now in the chord. And if you really want to kind of emphasize the chord, thing is, to be honest, I think you could, in passing, you could still get away with using this note. And if that comes up in your imagination, I wouldn't say avoid it necessarily, but if you want to outline the chord in a particular way, you could play a line like, which is going, it sounds funny in context, would be the flat 5 of C sharp minor to the lowered 6 of C sharp minor, which is it's just the root note of this chord, A, and then carrying on in C sharp minor as normal. So it's just a borrowing of one note. It's just a shifting of one note from one fret. Up here maybe it might look like, so if your regular C sharp minor scale looks like, you might want, if you just shift one note, so you're shifting this note, you're shifting it so it's going now, so the sound has changed, and then to chord 5 dominant. And that's pretty much the gist of it. So it doesn't really outright change key. It maybe just borrows some things, which is very common in a lot of chord progressions. So what's some other stuff you could think about doing? Or you have a lot of choice. I mean, let's say even when this G sharp dominant 7 chord is coming, if you want to keep it close to your home of C sharp minor, you're just thinking about shifting this one note, which you can still use the original one anyway, because this sound is very common. Even if this chord was going, that sound is very, very common, especially in blues. Basically the sound of playing a minor third on top of a chord with a major third in it. But you could also hear, if you really wanted to, you could think about borrowing from major here. You could use this note if you fancied it, and even this note. You have a lot of choice, but the main thing is probably follow the line in your imagination. You can think about, you've got this spectrum of, how much do I want to think of each chord individually? How much do I want to spell them out? Or do I want to be suggestive and just play over the whole thing and sort of float around on top? But it's just good to be aware of what's happening when the notes are sort of shifted within the chords. I think I'll play over it once more. Let's see if I have any of this. But yeah, basically you have a lot of choice, but I would always recommend, rather than, the first thing you should look at is just look at the look at the chords in groups that make sense. If you group them together where they're related, it'll make your life a little bit easier. And then, which is obviously what you want, because then you can express yourself a bit more. So there's one thing also I forgot to mention. You can at times just sort of forget about the family or the scale or whatever altogether, and just think about general concepts of like basically noise or sound effect. You know, you can really play anything as long as it ends up in the right place like that, you know. You know, if you like that happens a lot in all sorts of solos, just a line just filling in every note. But if you give it the right rhythmic feel somehow, you can pretty much approach any note with a note half step below. In general, seems to happen a lot, as long as the rhythm kind of flows right. You've just got so many options, but there's one I used there which seems to come up in, I don't know, it seems to fit certain chords and things well. If you have a C sharp minor key, if you want that kind of weird sound, notes you can think of basically lowering the root note and lowering the second. So if you lower the root note, you get this. So now you've got what looks like a minor seventh and a major seventh relative to C sharp. And if you lower the second, it starts to look really weird. And the way it works, it just seems to be able to resolve okay, at least the way I think about it. Flow in and out and just give a bit of a kind of effect. Same with the blues note. If you hit that at an angle rather than in a line, you know, rather than, it always seems to have a different effect if it comes at an angle. But you can feel free to mix these things in. Don't worry too much about it perfectly matching the chords. I think that's probably rambled long enough, but that's hopefully that's a way you can think about looking at a given chord progression and thinking of it relative to the actual key that it's in, and then just adjusting things here and there to maybe fit a bit nicer. But ultimately, you've just got to follow your own sense of melodic line in a way that makes sense to you. If you have any questions, do let me know. I'll see if I can elaborate. Thank you if you've made it this far.